morning, everyone. Glad to be here. I'm incredibly privileged to be here, actually. Not just to talk to you guys, but also to hear the story of the other speakers that have gone before me, who will come after me. It's incredible to see the different facets of leadership that each of these speakers is bringing. And hopefully, what I want to talk to you about is the intersection between environment, the natural environment, the economy, and society. So where do these three things come into conflict, have synergies? This is the space that I inhabit. This is my passion. And this is the space I've inhabited for much of my career. So hopefully I can pass on some of that passion and thinking on this. But before I get into that, I'd like to, can I have the presentation, please? Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about, environmental leadership. And I'm going to address the issue of why the environment is too important to leave to environmentalists. Slightly controversial, but I think it's a leadership role for all of us, every single one of us, to take in our lives, in where we live, where we work, where we play. And we all have to be leaders on this if we need to make the required changes. But before diving into that, I wanted to share an experience I had from earlier this year. I was lucky enough to go on the International Antarctic expedition. So in March 2014, I was the invited speaker on climate change for that expedition, and I got to go along. What I'd like to share with you is the clip of how awe-inspiring and how enthusing and how powerful an experience that was. And the clip, which is quite short, is going to be showing you the moment we came into Antarctica and the moment all of us on that ship realized that we were actually in this great, last, untouched wilderness in the whole world. Could you please play the clip, please?
And the captain is forcing his way into the brash ice, and it's touch and go whether we make it through, but fingers crossed. Too much ice locked in the most narrow bit, so
So that was the moment that we entered, and I realized that we were in this place that human beings hardly ever got to. But even that far away in Antarctica, we are having an impact. We're having an impact on the environment of Antarctica. And I'll give you two examples to illustrate this. One is this, which is the animal in the middle, the crustacean, is known as the krill. So it's nothing much to look at, really, but it is absolutely fundamental to the ecosystem and the food chain in Antarctica. Small fish eat it, penguins eat it, and those animals are in turn eaten by larger seals, whales, and it is absolutely fundamental to that ecosystem surviving. What's happened there is the krill population has come down by 80% since 1970. And why is that? The two things that are playing on that. One is climate change. So the seas are getting warmer, and so these krill can no longer survive in the numbers they could in those warmer seas. But secondly, we've suddenly figured out as human beings that krill are a good source of omega-3, the stuff we have in all our health and nutritional supplements. So we're sitting there and we're overfishing suddenly these population of krill. And if you do that, and if you reach a certain tipping point where these stocks collapse, the entire unique and rich and diverse ecosystem of the Antarctic will collapse, and we're all going to be the poorer for that. The other example I'd like to give you is something more directly related to climate change. The seas are warming, the air is warming. This has been good. The trend has been going on for more than 50 or 60 years. I would say even for much of the century. What has happened here is this is a picture taken by NASA a few days after the Larsen B ice shelf collapsed and slid into the sea off of Antarctica. It was 2,000 square kilometers of ice that just disintegrated over a course of 2 days. Now, if all the ice in Antarctica melted, which it won't, hopefully, that would raise sea levels by 60 meters. Even if 10% of that melted, you'd have 6-meter rise in sea levels. Think of what that would do to low-lying countries like Maldives, Bangladesh. Think what it would do to our coastal cities. So there's a huge impact that we are having on Antarctica, even though it's so far away, and it's then coming back to bite us. So this is what I would like to talk about. It's a technical slide. I'm an economist, so you couldn't possibly get away without at least one technical slide up there. So this is basically how fundamental the environment is to the economy. The environment feeds into the economy directly. We use wood to create paper products, packaging. We use energy to power our machines. We use water to produce things that we all like to use. The environment is also supporting the economy indirectly. The air we breathe, the fact that it's clean, helps us to be more healthy, to be more productive people. There's an amazing statistic that came out recently that the air quality in northern China is so bad that it's actually reduced human productivity and life expectancy by 5.5 years. So the environment is there to enable us to do things. It acts as a sink for all the waste we produce. It takes it, it breaks it down, absorbs it back. So it has an enabling effect to the economy there. But then I would also like to widen that to look at well-being and prosperity. The environment provides us with the recreational spaces we want. When we take holidays, where do we go? We go to the beach, we go to the mountains. That's the environment providing us with that space to improve our well-being and our prosperity. And so again, the study that was done in the UK government, which said basically that access to urban green space saved the NHS, the National Health Service, $2 billion a year just in health and costs, health and mental health costs. So it's huge, the impact that the environment does for us. And if we don't use it in an efficient way, in a sustainable way, what is going to happen is that the kinds of things we enjoy, the kinds of luxuries we enjoy, won't be there for our children and our children's children. So we are creating the situation where our children and future generations are going to be more impoverished in terms of environment than we were. And is that really fair? No, I would say. So it's a concern for all of us. We all have a role to play in this. There's a role for government. I spent most of my working career in government policymaking. I did it in the US, I did it in the UK. And there is a role for government to set the framework, to ensure leadership that the environment will be there. We can get use out of it, but it's there for the future. It's there for future generations to make the same use and get the same benefits out of that. My experience in government is that it's not just about making environment policy. It's about integrating environmental policy into economic policy, into education policy, into health policy. And that sort of comprehensive, integrated approach is what you need if you're going to address the problem. It's a concern for business. Businesses use all sorts of resources as part of their process of producing things that we want to enjoy, whether it's water, energy, waste. There is a story here where you can reduce your resource use at the same time as improving your bottom line. If you're spending less money on water and energy and in disposing waste, you are actually creating a more resilient business and a more financially resilient business. Now, I should probably confess here that in my checkered career, I now work for Shell International, one of the biggest companies in the world. And what do they want to think about? They want to think about how to integrate the environment better into their decision-making process, which is what I'm there to do and help them do. And the third pillar is civil society. It's all of us. It's our individuals, as educators, as leaders of NGOs, as professionals. All of us have a role to educate ourselves as to what are the benefits that the environment is giving us. What are we, in turn, doing to it? How are we impacting it? And to change our behaviors, our cultural norms, in a way that makes our patterns of consumption, our way of living, more environmentally sustainable than it is now. So that's absolutely crucial pillar. So I'm going to stop looking at the time, too, with sort of a call to action. I'm looking at across the room, I'm looking at future leaders in all of these domains, whether it's as professionals, as individuals, as community champions, as business leaders of the future, policymakers of the future. And I would just say very humbly that my experiences through my education, through my years of working in academia, in policymaking, in the private sector, There are a few things I can boil it down to, and there's 3 of them that I'd like you to keep in mind. First is taking personal responsibility. We're all consumers. Do any of you go and look at the label on the products you buy to make sure that they're environmentally sustainable? It doesn't take much to do that, but we need to take personal responsibility to do that. We need to also reduce how we use our resources. Think about it a bit more. Do you need the tap running while you're brushing your teeth? Do you need to leave the AC on when you're not in that particular room? Do you need to waste as much food as you do? These are things we can do and take ownership of it. I would say the next thing is make smart business decisions. Whether we are social entrepreneurs, just entrepreneurs, business people, corporate sector, there is a room here for actually improving the efficiency with which we use resources in a way that makes our business models more resilient for the future. So actually, you're doing a favor, and you're moving along your business model in a way that is compatible with the resources we have available to us. Another element would be to think about investing in new technologies. There is another opportunity where it's good business sense, and it is good for the environment. And third, and lastly, I say become a champion for the environment. We don't live in isolation. We don't live as islands. We live in communities. We live in families. We need to use awareness that we have to share with the communities, to change norms and to change behaviors and be part of that movement, changing those behaviors. We also need to hold our politicians to account. They are our representatives. They have the obligation to secure our future and behave in ways that do help us and actually benefit not just us, but the future generations to come. So I'm going to leave you with those 3 almost calls to action, which I think distill down where I'm coming from in terms of all my rather checkered history, studying, and working. So thank you very much.
TGELF, leading the change.